What is going on, guys? It's the Mad Dragon. We are back checking out another one of our preview videos. So this one will be for game 2 of round 3. It is Wales versus England. It is a huge game. I do have a created Wales and a created England team, so I've tried to find the one with the biggest gap. So I've gone for the Wales team over the England team for this game in the background. But let's jump in because we have so much to talk about the teams that have been announced. Let's kick this game off. Alrighty, Dan Bigger's going to get us kicked off. That's right, I've got rid of Gareth Anscombe from my team. So, Wales versus England. What two hard teams to try and put some analysis to. Wales, of course, have won both of their games, and in both games have only had to play 14 men for a portion of that game because both teams they've come up against have got a red card for almost the same identical situation, and England have not played well at all, really. They had a real difficult game back in the Autumn Nations Cup final against a bit of a nothing France team. Then they came on to play Scotland and got pretty dominated in that game, and then they did manage to step it up against Italy a little bit, but a couple of their tries felt potentially a little bit undeserved for how some of the players in that game were actually performing. So let's start off with the home team. Let's start off with Wales. Wales have been playing relatively well. Actually, their defence has definitely stepped up from the Autumn Nations Cup. They are playing so much better than I expected them to coming to this series. When I did the big prediction video at the start of this whole Six Nations, before it began, before teams were announced, I did think the only games that Wales were potentially going to win would be the Scotland and the Italy games. But they're going to go on. They've managed to beat Ireland. They played very well in that game, and defensively they have set up. So, moving on to looking at the team announced for this game, and injuries galore have come back to Wales. We've got rid of all the injuries. The healing has begun in that camp. So, checking out the team, the front row, Wyn Jones, Ken Owens, Tom Francis, all three of them playing out of their skin. They are having the best tournament I think I've seen in a front row in Wales for such a long time. Really impressive. Wyn Jones, of course, getting himself man of match and a try. Very, very strong. Adam Beard and Alan Wyn Jones will, of course, take up those lock positions. They are pretty set now for the Six Nations, I imagine, just to have those two at 4 and 5. In the back row, Navidi is back in at 6. Shame for Wainwright's going to miss out, but Navidi is a great player to have in, strengthening that back row a little bit. Tipuric at 7, of course. I will always rant about how amazing I think Tipuric is. I think he's a superb player and should absolutely have the full credit he deserves. And Falatau, who's been doing his work great in terms of tackling through these games so far. Defensively, he's holding out pretty sound. So 1 to 8 for Wales, looking absolutely solid. I don't even know where the chink in the armour is there. All of them doing absolutely brilliantly at the minute. Alan Wyn Jones could do with giving away a few less penalties potentially, but across the board, the 1 to 8 looking very, very strong. Checking out the backs, Kieran Hardy's going to move in at 9. People did think maybe Gareth Davies would start, but to me, he had such a bad game in that Scotland game. I wasn't impressed at all. Of course, him and Bigger did get themselves taken out of the game. What was it, about the 55, 60-minute marker or something? Even Pivac wasn't believing in them. So Kieran Hardy's going to come in. I'm looking forward to seeing him have another start. I think he's a very good 9. He's probably the best 9 remaining in the team for me as Thomas Williams went out. Gareth Davies is just not on form at the minute. He's having a really, really tough time playing that number 9 shirt. Kieran Hardy's much better in terms of the box kick and just game management, really. He's very quick off the mark. Gareth Davies has had 2 pretty poor games so far, so not surprised by this choice at all. Dan Bigger retains that 10. I did really think Sheedy would have potentially taken that 10 shirt, but Dan Bigger going to remain there, of course. He's a captain. He's done a lot of work for this Wales team. He does manage to steady that ship a little bit, especially when it comes to the big games playing England. They know they love to have Dan Bigger on. So we'll see how he gets on. Hopefully he has a better game than he has against Scotland and manages to perform a little bit better against England. Moving into this backline, a lot of changes here to what I thought they were potentially going to do. Of course, Josh Adams is back after his ban from breaking COVID restrictions. So Josh Adams is going to retain that left position that we all know he can play so well in. Jonathan Davis is going to move to 12, which is not a position I think I've ever seen him play. He loves his 13 shirt. George North back from injury as well to keep that injury train going. Going to attain that 13 shirt, which he played very well at in the Ireland team, even though I think he should be putting on that 14 shirt, but he's doing well. Rhys Zammit having the tournament of his life at the minute in that 14 shirt. And finally, Liam Williams to finish off that 15. You will hear the joy in my voice as for the first time in a long time, I feel like this is an incredibly decent Wales team that could be looking to perform very, very well. I do think I will point out my own opinion here on some changes I would potentially make in this team. Josh Adams, for me, hasn't performed too well at an international stage for a little while now. I think he had quite a bad Autumn Nations Cup, even going further back into the Six Nations. I don't think he had a brilliant Six Nations last year. At club level, I've watched him play a little bit, and he hasn't done a lot to impress me there either. Become very aggressive, sort of following a Liam Williams. Discipline's been a bit all over the place in the Autumn Nations Cup. Got himself yellow carded for a pretty pointless tackle. So I was a bit in question whether Josh Adams would get in this team, or maybe whether he'd go on the bench, of course. Then he had his breaking COVID restrictions, getting himself banned. I'm not sure if he was necessarily the best choice, but of course we all know how good he can be. To me personally here, what you do is you maybe look at trying to move Zammit onto the left wing, or if you're happy with him in that 14 position, we know George North can play the wing. He's in good form at the Ospreys. He plays well on that right wing at the Ospreys. He's in and week out. So to me, maybe I would move Reece Zammit to the left wing, North to the right wing. It allows Jonathan Davis to go back to that 13 shirt where he's so good, and then maybe even bring Halaholo or Johnny Williams into that 12 shirt. As far as I'm aware, through people putting down in the comments and videos that I've seen and some team news going on, it seems to be that everyone that has been injured through the Six Nations is now back in this Wales team, bar Halfpenny, who is still out with his concussion issues. So there's still dedicated 12 and 13s in this Wales team, which yet again, Pivac isn't putting those people in those places, which is such a strange thing to me. But I'm not a coach. I'm a guy on the internet with a microphone who has an opinion on rugby. But Jonathan Davis, to me, I think could have taken 13 and maybe even Chuck North on at 12 at that point. Jonathan Davis is, of course, the defensive captain for Wales. He's very good. So hopefully he'll have a good game. A quick look at the replacements before we move on to the England team. Not a lot of changes to be made here. Elliot Dee, Roger Jones and Leon Brown, who are all performing very well again in that Scotland game, coming on from the bench, really managing to support themselves when they needed to. Corey Hill will, of course, come on, I imagine, for Adam Beard at some point in that second half. James Botham is in the team as well, which I actually thought maybe they would have gone for Wainwright here. He can play 6 and 8, and I thought maybe you never know what's going to come injury-wise. I believe Botham is far more towards the flanker area than a number 8 shirt, but of course Navidi can swap back to that 8 if you wanted to replace him for Faletau. So maybe there's some good decision making there. Gareth Davis, of course, will have that replacement scrum half jersey. I don't even know who's really left in the team now. I think Roger Williams has come in, but I do know he got released to go play club level. So Gareth Davis is probably still a solid 21. He's having a bad tournament and he's not quite in form, but he's still as good as he can be. We know how good he can be when he turns up on the day. It would just be nice to see him do it for a change. That would be useful to see. Callum Sheedy, of course, will come on in that second half. I'm a big fan of Sheedy. He's come on to the team, very few caps, and every game I've seen him in, I've been very impressed. His kicking wasn't the best in the last game in terms of kicking for posts, of course, getting a couple misses himself. But in terms of general play as a fly half, he's very good. And I'm looking forward to see how Sheedy's career will continue. And then finally to finish it off, Halaholo in that 23 shirt. Very impressed with him again. Feeling a little bit bad that Owen Watkin doesn't get a look in this week. I thought Owen Watkin had the best game I've ever seen him play, but maybe leave them wanting more is what he wanted to go for. But Owen Watkin was super impressive. But Halaholo, I'm sure will come on. Maybe he will come on for either Jonathan Davis or North. He can come on for North and move Jonathan Davis back to that 13 so he can retain the entitled 12 that he's so good at, or maybe he'll come straight on for Jonathan Davis. Don't know, but a strong team overall from Wales. They're not backing down from this one. They're on for the Grand Slam is things I have been seeing around. I mean, it's still there for them. Maybe there'll be another red card. Maybe they can keep it going. I'm looking forward to seeing this game. This is the strongest Wales team I've seen and the most confidence I've had in a Wales team for a little while now. Across last year wasn't that impressive. So hopefully they'll perform to the best of their standards against the England team that we shall move on to talking about. And for anyone who didn't see the video where I did my own personal team selection of who I would pick for both teams in that video, I made a lot of changes to how the England team has been made. There's a couple of people not showing off for me at all in this England team, and some people are playing very well as they did in that Italy team. So, looking at the forwards, Vunipola taking that number 1 shirt along with Sinclair at 3. These were the replacement front row that came in against Italy. Both performed very well. They're sort of who I expected to go in. Interesting, they've gone for Jamie George here. Cowan Dickey really impressed me in that Italy game just with sheer forward attack. He was not being stopped, even that little tap and go that he did. Very impressive, but we know how good Jamie George is in the back of that more when it's rolling forwards. Itoje and Johnny Hill will, of course, take those lock positions. Mark Wilson's coming in at 6. Courtney Laws is out injured. Very late injury coming in there, so it'll be interesting to see how Mark Wilson get on there. I actually thought Mark Wilson was more renowned as a 7, so I thought maybe Tom Curry would move to 6 at that point, but Tom Curry will retain his 7 shirt. Big fan of Tom Curry, as we all know. And Vunapola will, of course, take that 8 shirt. Big boys coming in. But the backs is where the most interesting talking point's going to be for England for me. So although me and Eddie Jones have sort of agreed on the forwards a little bit, minus sort of injury changes and stuff, the backs is where it's changed up a lot. Ben Youngs, to me, isn't having the best tournament. I'm surprised that he's been picked to be starting here. George Ford at 10, I think, is a great call. I think he's having a much better game than Farrell, and I really think the England team needed to create a game plan around George Ford, because Owen Farrell is not having a good tournament. Seen a lot of talk about people dropping Owen Farrell, but Eddie Jones is a big Owen Farrell fan. Of course, he's the captain. He's a difficult man to get rid of. But I think sometimes it can get under his skin a little bit. And Eddie Jones can hold back this England team with trying to hang on to people he likes rather than playing who's at their best form currently. So Owen Farrell will take 12, which I think is a big call to go for. He's going to need to have a big game in order to keep going through the Six Nations. If he has another poor game, he could be in a lot of trouble. Henry Slade, who's having a great tournament at the minute, actually. He's probably one of the standout players in this England team. Of course, he's going to retain that 13. Johnny May and Anthony Watson on the wings, as they have been through this whole tournament. Not impressive in the Scotland game by any means. Anthony Watson coming a bit more alive in that Italian game. And Johnny May, we still sort of wait to see him have a complete 80 minutes of superbness. He sort of gets that one out of the blue try that we always like to see from Johnny May. And Elliot Daly at that fullback position, again, disagree with this. Elliot Daly struggling as well. Got himself a try in that last game against Italy, but to me, poor game all around for him. Surprised to see him in. I'm a little bit worried whether or not England have misjudged this a little bit. They seem to have gone for just the standard England team, which makes you think they're going to come out with a standard England game plan. I think currently Wales are defensively very strong, and I think if they take control of this game, England could be in with a bit of an issue. So looking at the replacements, of course, Cowan Dickey's going to be in there. Ellis Genge, a big surprise to me again here. Ellis Genge, I think, is not having a good tournament. He just seems so aggressive and just trying to do his own thing rather than staying with the team. Did see him in that Italy game, a couple of 2-on-1s with Johnny May on your outside and not giving the pass. Just wanted to take it himself. I think he's so desperate to be in this England team. I think he's coming across a bit over-eager rather than working in the team. Will Stewart, of course, is a good replacement. Be looking forward to seeing him at some point. Charlie Ewell's going to be coming in. George Martin will be nice to see a bit of a change coming in later on in that game. Ben Earl will be coming on, I imagine, at flanker, maybe number 8. He does come on sort of later in that second half. Dan Robson, who to me I would have had starting, and Max Malins, who I imagine, I don't even know where he might come on. He might come on in towards the centre area to replace Farrell if he's not doing well, or maybe they'll try and stick him somewhere else. Not 100% sure. There's a couple of things about this game that I think could go all over the place. So in terms of prediction, well, so far every time I predicted a team to beat Wales, Wales win. So I sort of want to continue down that avenue. But to me, the team here, for the first time in quite a little while, actually, I'm going to say the Wales team's looking potentially stronger than this England team going into this game. I've got a feeling there could be the opportunity for Wales to take this game, actually. I'm going to predict Wales to win, not by an enormous amount. I think it will be held close. We always know how close the Wales-England games are. I'm going to say Wales to win by 6. I think they'll stay within that one score, but just enough that a late-minute drop goal won't be the big difference in this game. But what do you guys think? Make sure you drop it down in the comments. I can't wait for this game. This is going to be the biggest game of the tournament for me. As a Wales fan, always going up against England, we always enjoy it, but it's always nice to see teams play these big games. Of course, we will be missing one game in the Scotland-France game. But let me know down in the comments who you're rooting for, who you think will win, what do you think the score will be. I really enjoy seeing how people think down in the comments on who you think will take each of the games. I hope you've all enjoyed today, guys. Cannot wait for round 3 to start. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.